VP Morgan, the man who owned America. Wealth, authority, and clout. It was all JP Morgan's. He was the owner of the first billion-dollar company. He controlled the most lucrative industries in the nation. And several times, JP Morgan's decisions determined how the US economy performed. He was capable of averting bankruptcy or saving a corporation from catastrophe with a single word or pen stroke. Some people hate J. Morgan, while others adore him. No individual will ever be quite like him. This is his tale. A curious beginning. In 1837, John Pierpont Morgan was born in Connecticut into a wealthy family. Since John's father, Junius Spencer Morgan, was already a successful banker, he made sure that his son had the most education possible for him to follow in his footsteps and become a financier. John was born into affluence, yet he had a miserable upbringing. He was an ill little boy. He frequently experienced severe coughing fits, migraines, convulsions, and several illnesses, including scarlet fever. Because of his health issues, he was frequently unable to play outside with the other youngsters. Rather, he would be inside, reviewing or scrutinizing financial statements. In truth, when John had rheumatic sickness and became bedridden, his father sent him to live alone on the Azores Islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. John's father thought the weather and sea air would aid in his son's recovery. John thus lived alone on that island for almost a full year before continuing his schooling once he was well enough. The magnate of the railroad. John recognized his chance to work with Anthony Drexel, a banker, who was one of the nation's top financiers, in 1871. Together, they established the Drexel, Morgan & Co. private merchant banking house, which was eventually renamed to just JP Morgan & Co. John would oversee this business for the remainder of his life, acting as a forerunner to the contemporary financial behemoth that is now known as Morgan Chase. Now, early in his career, John had primarily served as a dealmaker, bringing together visionaries and affluent investors in return for a share of the profits. However, John was able to fund many of these initiatives on his own as he grew in wealth and notoriety. John had already decided on the American railroad system as his first significant investment. The railroads weren't monopolized at the time. Quite the contrary, there were so many rival companies offering extremely similar routes that they frequently cut their prices in an attempt to win customers. At the same time, the majority of other major industries were controlled by a single magnate, such as Carnegie controlling the steel industry and Rockefeller controlling the oil industry. But in 1901, it appeared as though John had at last met President Theodore Roosevelt, who would finally confront him. As you can see, John had recently combined his Northern Pacific Railroad with two other nearby railroads to form the Northern Securities Corporation, a sizable new holding corporation. And because of his strong ties with the incumbent president, William McKinley, he had been able to get away with these kinds of monopolistic actions. However, following McKinley's assassination, Theodore Roosevelt unexpectedly assumed the presidency and adopted a different stance from John's. Roosevelt gave the Justice Department the order to sue the business for breaking the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. John contested this in court, but in the end, the business was divided, and the two men's relationship was going to be extremely difficult from the start. John expressed his satisfaction with Roosevelt's decision to visit Africa one year, saying, "Good, I hope the first lion that meets him does his duty." But this was just a little setback for John. Already, he was hatching an even more outrageous scheme. The Iron Man. Carnegie Steel reached its zenith in 1901. It was one of the most valued firms in the nation and dominated the steel industry. Although Carnegie's company brought in approximately $40 million annually, he was eager to sell it and retire. Who, though, could afford it? That was John's contribution. Essentially, he told Carnegie to set his price, and Carnegie did $480 million, which would have been the highest amount ever paid in a business transaction. John, however, instantly consented and subsequently acknowledged that he would have paid an additional $100 million. When John made the historic acquisition in 1901, his grand scheme had only just begun. With a market valuation of $1.4 billion, he combined Carnegie Steel, the Federal Steel Company, and a few other companies to create U.S. Steel, the first billion-dollar firm in history. To put that into perspective, the total capitalization of the nation's manufacturing sector was $9 billion. John gained control over about two-thirds of the U.S. steel output as a result of this agreement. In other words, John appeared to have mastered both railroads and steel, two of the biggest industries of the time. He didn't stop there, either. John contributed to the funding of Thomas Edison's initial electrical experiments. Afterward, he was crucial in the combination of Edison Electric with its rivals to form General Electric. Furthermore, John had a hand in founding the company that would eventually become At and T. John possessed unparalleled skills in merging businesses to create formidable behemoths. But alas, a catastrophe was about to break out. Crisis. The United States was experiencing a downturn in 1893, unlike anything it had ever experienced. Following several decades of unrelenting expansion and reckless investment, the bubble burst, sending the U.S. economy into disarray. The country saw a sharp increase in unemployment as hundreds of banks failed, thousands of businesses permanently closed, and stocks collapsed, losing over half of their value. Foreign investors were scared off by the crisis and exchanged their American bonds for gold, gradually but steadily eroding its reserves. People could convert their paper money into actual gold at the time since the dollar was still backed by the gold standard, giving them greater assurance that their money was genuinely valuable. To support the dollar, the U.S. government therefore always kept gold bullion valued at least $100 million on hand. But by 1895, the dollar had lost a great deal of its value and the majority of that gold had disappeared. The government was at risk of defaulting on its obligations at any time, with its gold holdings valued at just $9 million at their lowest. Naturally, the panic that followed the gold run caused other investors to withdraw their funds from the U.S., significantly depleting the country's reserves. The situation was very bad, and the U.S. did not have a central bank to save them at the moment. ShipStation can help you save money on shipping. Thus far, we have learned about how J.P. Morgan transformed the railroads, thereby altering the modes of commodities transportation. However, what about now? These days, there are a plethora of shipping auctions accessible. How can one determine which one offers the best value? That's when ShipStation, our video sponsor, comes into play. They even assist you in obtaining substantial reductions, such as up to 84% off USPs and UPS rates, and make it simple to compare costs and delivery times from various carriers. Economies of scale like these are often only available to large corporations, but now that ShipStation has been established, e-commerce companies of all sizes may take advantage of the best shipping rates. Additionally, ShipStation saves you a ton of time because it interacts with Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Shopify, and many other online marketplaces seamlessly. In this manner, you can print mailing labels, automate regular shipping operations, and manage each order from a single easy-to-use dashboard. And as if that wasn't enough, you can receive 2 months for free when you use my link below. Continue expanding your company with ShipStation throughout the entire year. Visit ShipStation.com Magnates to register for a complimentary 60-day trial now. That's magnates/ShipStation.com. The legacy. John was coming under more and more observation. The American public was growing more and more tired of a small number of merchants with such immense power and influence, and therefore the era of the robber baron who could conduct his business with impunity was slowly coming to an end. John was asked to appear before the Pujo Committee, whose goal was to look into the real scope of Wall Street's money trust and how important it was to the US economy. During the Pujo Committee hearings, John took center stage and emerged as the symbol of Wall Street dominance. John was doing well financially, but his mental health was failing. He experienced several panic breakdowns and found it difficult to cope with the unfavorable public perception of him in the media. Ironically, he was scheduled to board the Titanic on its inaugural voyage, but had to cancel at the last minute owing to health concerns. Even while he is frequently condemned for being a monopolistic robber baron, cruel and selfish, he is also praised for being a relentless philanthropist and an economic rescuer. Whatever your thoughts about John Pierpont Morgan, however, he was unquestionably one of the most significant, divisive, and legendary individuals in American history. Would you like it? Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more interesting and informative videos.